so we're going to get started. So welcome to our Thursday Circular Chat. So I'm Jess, I'm one of the Circular Economy Club London volunteers. So I just thought I'd give you a little bit of background on the Circular Economy Club just before we get started. So the Circular Economy Club is actually the largest international network of circular economy professionals and organisations. So we've got over 260 local clubs, and that's over 110 countries. So yeah, if you haven't joined your local club yet, please do, because it's completely free. Just go to circulareconomy.com. That link is in our bio. So just, click on there and find out more about your local club. And join, because it's free. So why not? So basically, normally in London, we do monthly events. It's always a different circular economy topic. But obviously, with everything that's going on, we've had to cancel a few of those. And now we are doing Instagram Lives. So this is our third one. Every week is a different event. And if you have an idea on a topic that you would want us to discuss and to talk about, please comment on this chat or feel free to direct message us afterwards. Because we're really, really open to suggestions. And every week we talk about, what should we talk about next week and the next few months and stuff. So today's topic, we'll be looking at the impacts that coronavirus has had on the commercial waste and recycling industry. And our guest today is Bruce, the CEO and founder of First Mile. So feel free to ask questions as we go on, and I'm going to see if Bruce wants to join us. So if you want to send me a request, Bruce, let's go. Yes, let's go with Bruce. Because we've got loads of recycling questions for Bruce. And as I said, feel free to comment as we go. Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. I might turn the volume up on my side, actually. There we go. Cool. So thanks for joining us for our Thursday Circular Chat.
Great to be here. Good to see you, Jess. And thank you for inviting me. Hi, everyone on Circular Club. Hi.
So I think we'll just go right into it, and if you just want to introduce yourself and explain what First Mile does.
Cool, great. Hi everybody. So my name's Bruce Bradley. I set up First Mile about 16 years ago, and I set the business up because nobody in the waste company was really taking recycling seriously, and for SMEs and businesses in city centres there was no proper recycling service. Prior to First Mile, I set up, I was one of the first people to set up Valpack, which is a recycling packaging compliance scheme. So I knew quite a lot about packaging recycling, and it just seemed to me weird that cities weren't getting recycling. And before that, I did my sort of PhD in environmental stuff. So I had no experience whatsoever in running an operational business. So it was a bit of a baptism of fire and quite crazy getting in there. But quite quickly we realized that businesses were really keen to recycle, and because waste was sort of and continues to be a pretty politicized environmental issue, the commercial sector had been ignored. So First Mile's remit is the same as it always has been, which is to help commercial businesses recycle as much as they possibly can from their offices, restaurants, retail outlets, and we have an amazing team based in London and Birmingham who are out there getting people to recycle all of the time, all of the day. And that's going really well. Looking to what we're sort of moving towards in the future, we've got a couple of things, which is, and I'll talk a bit about this hopefully later, is our at-home division. And we're finding increasingly businesses, people living at home, so consumers wanting to do more recycling on top of what councils offer. And so we have our at-home division. And we are also starting to get into the sort of nascent market of a significant requirement for people with reuse platforms needing a return solution. And that's one of the things that we're looking at launching pretty soon.
Cool, great. So I think a main question for today really is, how has coronavirus impacted First Mile?
I can't believe we're going to talk about coronavirus yet.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Obviously, as I said in the introduction, we service largely commercial businesses, many of which have closed. So the business took a significant downturn in terms of sales and the volume of material we're collecting for recycling. So our sales are down about 80%, and the volume we're collecting is down a similar amount as well. There are still a lot of businesses that are still open, and we estimate 25% of our businesses that are still open. These are businesses deemed to be essential businesses, but their volume levels in terms of what the waste they're producing is much lower. So we, as a result of coronavirus, we're still operating, we're still delivering, we're still collecting, but at a much lower level. And we've got 202 of our drivers, operational staff and head office staff on furlough at the moment, and we're working and hoping they come back to the business as soon as possible. So the business as usual scenario is business as unusual. We're still recycling, we're still servicing businesses that are open, but at a much lower level. What that's enabled us to do is to accelerate a number of the areas that we were looking at more quickly, and in particular the at-home division. And we've launched pretty rapidly in the last few weeks a number of services that cross over into the business sector as well. But for now, we're focusing on them in terms of the at-home division. And these are sort of quite obvious things like a confidential service for people who have confidential papers at home and they need to get those shredded. We're helping businesses if helping individuals if councils haven't turned up to collect the recycling, or they've had a clearance and they need an additional pickup, which is going down very well. But then the sort of less normal things that we've done, for example, is we've launched a fruit and veg delivery service. And this is partly in response to people asking us, you know, why can't I get a good source of wholesome, sustainable, low packaging fruit and veg? Why do I have to go to the supermarket, or why do I need to rely on online deliveries where the quality might not be great? So we've teamed up with a wholesaler in Worcestershire who is delivering amazing value and quality produce to us. We're then delivering it out to households in London. That's becoming very popular. And the crossover there really is that we will continue that service after lockdown, both for households, but also moving into the fruit box delivery service for offices and retailers, and perhaps even looking at supplying restaurants and wholesalers. So there's a lot going on, Jess.
From recycling to fruit and veg. But as you said, so you've put over, obviously, 202 people on furlough. How have you found it, as a CEO, to keep morale going with those 202 people that have been furloughed, but also the people that are still working full time, but obviously, without being able to see anyone? So how have you found that as a CEO?
Well, we've got an amazing team at First Mile, and it's sort of taken 16 years to build up an incredible group of people with amazing values and amazing sort of balance between super competitive and wanting to do the right thing, and being passionate about climate change and working with our customers sort of who want to improve the environment and hopefully extend humanity's stay on planet Earth. And not being in close contact with that amazing team on a daily basis is really challenging. It's great. If anyone's been to the First Mile office, I know we did a great circular economy event at the office. The energy levels are just phenomenal. People are smiling, and this isn't forced. This is we have great people that work for us. If anyone's been out on a round or seen one of our drivers in London, they do an incredible job. The Birmingham team are fantastic. So it's been very difficult apart from the team, and not picking up that vibe and that energy and that creative impulse that the people have all the time. And then, working at home on Teams, Teams is Teams. It's pretty hard working in 2 dimensions when we're 3-dimensional and programmed to work in a 3-dimensional world. You don't pick up the nuances of conversation. You don't pick up the vibe. You don't pick up the people. So it's pretty tough. Because
how have you found that working from home? Because the feedback I'm getting is quite a divide of so many people saying, oh, actually, I'm used to this. You know, there's no more commute. I have more time with my family, this and that. And then other people that are just like, oh my gosh, no, I can't wait to go back to the office or wherever they work and just be surrounded by people. So what's your opinion on that?
I'm an introvert, so I get my energy levels internally. So I'm sort of quite happy up a mountain on my own, really, for a while. But I don't think that can be sustained indefinitely. And I think the thing that coronavirus has taught us is this idea that we all have to go to offices to work isn't right. I think it's also taught us that we're social creatures and we can't all be at home locked up all of the time. So I think probably the new normal, I don't buy this idea. I think the CEO of Barclays was saying yesterday that we're never going to have all these people coming back and working in these offices in the city. I don't buy that. I think there's going to be a change, but it's not going to be everybody working at home. I think we're going to still have CBD, central business districts. We're still going to have people coming and working and getting that creativity going and that energy going and people together to work. But I also think what coronavirus has shown us is that anybody, managers in particular, who said you have to be in the office to work, they were wrong, thought they were. And I think probably 1 or 2 days at home a week, you can get a lot done. It's good for mental health. It's good for your mental agility and creativity. So being at home, I think, is a good thing, but not all the time. We'll get crazy.
True. But when businesses do eventually, hopefully, start to reopen, what will that mean for recycling services then?
Well, I used the word already, agile, and I think there's a number of ways to answer this, really. So I think we're seeing recycling continue through lockdown, and our businesses that are still operating are still using our recycling services, and actually the quality of the recycling has gone up. There's less contamination. I think people are a bit more considered in terms of what they're doing. I'm doing a Insta Live every week in terms of can I recycle that? I think there's a lot of interest from people at home wanting to know, finally, can I recycle this damn piece of plastic or not? And I think coronavirus has also shown us that if we don't look after the environment, then there's creatures and viruses and things that will come back and bite back. And so we do need to take a much more considered approach. And I don't think we have lost with coronavirus the momentum around the environment. So when businesses start to open up, I think there's going to be a renewed interest in recycling. I think there's going to be a renewed interest in waste reduction and reuse and the circular economy, which is fantastic. But I think in terms of how we come back to work, there needs to be a level of agility, and I think people need to be expecting some flexibility. So First Mile, for example, have something called First Mile Flex, which is all about getting people up and running and ensuring they're still recycling, but they don't need to buy into really expensive services, and they can fine-tune services so they can increase the volume or they can decrease the volume. If we're in lockdown, decrease. If we're allowed to go back to work with social distancing, then can increase. And I think that level of flexibility and having some agility around the services and your service providers is really important. And then the two final pieces really are, one is I think businesses still have a responsibility to look after their home workers, and starting to think about if they can buy services, because they've lost the cost of having an office, therefore for some of the week, can they then should they be supporting businesses at home, people at home that work for business, helping them with subsidized energy, green energy, waste services, fruit and veg, whatever it is. So I think that's really key. And then the last bit really is PPE. There were some reports in the news from the Paper Federation today saying that unfortunately people are throwing out rubber gloves, face masks and PPE into recycling, which is not good. So again, First Mile are launching a service of there's a clinical waste, and then there's a level below called offensive waste, which is relevant for PPE, face masks and gloves, and we're launching that service nationally next week. I don't think it's got a name yet. We're moving that quick. And this is all about making sure when businesses come back and open, if they're doing more cleaning, if we all have to wear face masks, or people coming off the tube wearing PPE and they need to take them, the facilities will be available and we don't end up with that material in the wrong waste stream.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, Jess.
No, that's fine. The more details, the better. We've got a couple questions from the audience. Keep them coming. It's now or never, really. So our first question is, how can we facilitate access for recycling batteries, bulbs, or things that do not qualify from the council service?
Good. So the first thing, which it sounds like the viewer has identified, is look out for the little wheelie bin with a cross through it. That symbol means that don't put it in with your regular recycling or your regular waste, because it's going to contaminate the recycling. And if it's either incinerated or landfilled, it will result in toxic materials from the batteries or the waste electronics being released into the atmosphere or into the water course if it's landfill. So the key thing is dispose of it responsibly, and then you're sort of asked about, well, how is that meant to work out? Waste electronics and batteries, computers, etc. You had a number of options pre-lockdown. One was there's quite often battery drop-off points at retail sites if you can find them, but lots of people were relying on taking materials to civic amenity sites if they've got one accessible, or household waste recycling centres as they're now called. The recycling centres are all closed, and they have been since lockdown. The councils are trying to reopen them, but I don't think Whitehall's too keen on that. Even when they do reopen, they'll be congested because of social distancing, and people won't be able to get in them so easily. So the solution really is you can send it to First Mile. We've got a postback service for small items of waste electronics, mobile phones, laptops, which is free. You can send it back to us in our recycle box, or if you've got a clear out of IT equipment, we can come and do a small clearance for you, and we can get that picked up as well. So there's a number of options for recycling waste electronics. Batteries, again, you can send those back to us in the free post envelope or in the recycle box if you can't find a battery drop-off point in the local supermarket, or you might not want to go there.
Cool.
Hopefully that answered the viewers.
Yeah, I'm currently finding loads of like old batteries in my house that we've left in various different remotes and stuff like that just completely explode. So should have sent them off ages ago.
Absolutely.
We've got another question. So how important is the life cycle thinking / design? How important is that when it comes to recycling? It's a bit of a broad one, but
that is great. It's a great question, and I did my PhD with Prof. Roland Clift, who was one of the first people to come up with the life cycle analysis approach. And the life cycle analysis is great because it looks at as it says, the entire sort of cradle to grave analysis of the life cycle of a product. But that results in lots of different variables, which you don't necessarily know unless you're looking at a specific product and its specific life cycle. And one of the things that quite often changes the impact is of how far something travels as part of the supply chain. So you might have something that looks quite green as a product, but then if you fly it in here, if it's made in the Far East, or if it's made in Europe, and you fly it in here, it's going to completely destroy any green benefit from the life cycle. So life cycle analysis are really important, and they do tell us the green element of things, but you need to have some perspective around them, and you can often twist them to say what you want them to say by changing a variable such as transport or even type of transport. So it's probably worth just sort of looking at the sort of top 5 assumptions if you're looking at a life cycle assessment and that cradle to grave analysis.
Great. I've got 2 more questions that have popped up. I'll start with probably the easiest one. Are rechargeable batteries really better for the environment?
That's brilliant, because that links directly to life cycle analysis. So, not if you only use them once. But yes, they are better for the environment. And again, everything's got a caveat. So the better they're for the environment if they're used for their lifetime, so they're charged over and over again until they're no longer serviceable. And guess what? They're better for the environment if they're then going into a recycling program, because they've usually got valuable metals in them, and they can be recovered and recycled back into new batteries as well. So there's two main caveats.
Yeah.
And the third caveat, which is a wonderful way of making them better for the environment, if you're recharging the batteries at home, you get some control, and you can choose your energy provider. And if you choose a renewable energy provider, then hey presto, it's good for the environment. But if you just buy Duracell disposable batteries, you have no idea how they are charging them, and they'll definitely be using the cheapest energy source out there.
Okay, great. Another question: how are you dealing with the data on computers? So I'm guessing the computers that we collect. What are we doing with the data on there?
Sure. So when we collect computers, we assess them straight away to see if they are serviceable or not. And by that we mean, could we refurbish them and then resell them into the secondary market, or donate them to charities? And we normally resell them because the charity market is quite limited. If we're reselling them and they still have a hard drive in them, we completely, using military grade software, erase all of the information, all of the operating systems, everything, just down to the basic coding on the hard drive. And then we rebuild the hard drive. We put an operating system up. If you're familiar with computers, we basically take it back down to the DOS drive, the black and white screen, and then we rebuild it back up again. Some of our customers remove the hard drive and they send them to us for separate destruction, or they remove the hard drive, sort of bend it, put a screwdriver through it, and then send it to us. If there has been any indication that the hard drive is not to be reused, it's either been removed or it's been destroyed in situ, those hard drives get shredded through a security shredder down to sort of 50 pence piece size pieces of metal, and they go off to get recycled. But not all is lost for the computers, because we sell quite a lot of computer carcasses, and people who are into computers for hobbies or rebuilding, they often want the carcass, which is the motherboard, the fan, and the metal frame and the drives, and they will put in a new hard drive and rebuild that up to a new computer. So even if it doesn't have a hard drive, we can often reuse it and recycle it and upcycle it. So good question.
Great. I've got two more questions that have just popped
Brilliant.
up. So someone is asking, has First Mile considered offering on-site waste disposal solutions to reduce environmental impact of waste truck logistics?
Yes. I was actually looking, there's a Malaysian or South Korean business called MiniWiz, who've got an amazing on-site recycling business where they take plastics and make them into sunglasses.
Wow.
Outside your business. And then a more sort of common day sort of on-site waste disposal operation is if you have on-site confidential paper shredding, and then the paper shredded on-site and taken away. This tends to work for larger on-site businesses where, for example, you might have a large hotel or a country club or a shopping centre, and you can put, for example, small anaerobic digestion facilities on site, or paper and plastics processing facilities on site. The difficulty with on-site facilities is that you have to get a certain amount of scale for processes to be efficient, and recycling processes at the moment tend to be quite industrial, and you want to have a good amount of scale. And at the moment it still makes sense to take material to a central facility where you can get a higher level of recovery and recycling and do it in a more efficient way than you do taking an inefficient small scale recycling facility to a facility. The key thing is to have low impact transport, and at First Mile we work very hard on that, and we have electric vehicles, we work with driver behaviour to reduce their impact, and we buy green fuel, and all vehicles are low emission compliant. So getting a low impact logistics platform is key to that.
Yeah. Our next question, which I like the look of, is how has the ban of waste export to countries such as China affected your activities? Do you see a shift in mindset from government or businesses?
Yeah, so China and other countries haven't banned the import of recyclables. What they've mainly banned is the import of low quality recyclables with high levels of contamination, which is absolutely the right thing to do. And the West, including the UK government, have, in the same way that we've sort of externalized all of our environmental footprint to the developing countries to reduce the cost of production, we're also externalizing all of the costs associated with waste management by sending low quality plastics and papers and waste electronics to developing countries for them to deal with. And it's absolutely crazy, because if, for example, a contaminated load of plastic arrives in a developing country, and let's say 70% of it can be recycled, the other 30% then needs to be disposed of, and it's getting potentially thrown in a river, incinerated in an open field, or landfilled. And that material should be disposed of in a controlled way in the country. Yeah. So myself personally and First Mile, we wholeheartedly support the ban of contaminated materials. And in the case of plastics, which is the main culprit here, what we should be doing is promoting a UK plastics reprocessing industry where we clean, sort and pelletize plastics here, and then we export the flake or the nurdles as plastic to developing countries who may well need the plastic. That's fine, it becomes a commodity, then it can be traded globally. But what we need to do is take back control of our, God, that sounds like Brexit, sorry, we need to take control of our material here. Yeah. With very high environmental standards, and we need to control that waste here. And there's just been this sort of march towards globalization where we're exporting all the externalities associated with production of goods in the first place, and now more recently recycling, as it's called, waste management. And we can't just keep externalizing everything to parts of the world with low environmental standards. It's pretty bad.
Thanks for that. Vanessa's asked a similar question, but just added, which follows in nicely with what you said. Has this now led to more recycling facilities being built in the UK or not?
That's a great question. We are building more recycling facilities in the UK. So, for example, if you recycle plastic bottles, there's probably a 90% chance they're going to get recycled in the UK. So milk jugs, milk bottles, Coca-Cola bottles, and we've got some good recycling facilities here. Actually, funnily enough, 15 years ago, we had a lot more recycling, in particular plastics recycling plants in the UK. But because we sort of have this race towards sending things globally for the cheapest possible outcome, many recycling businesses closed down because they weren't economically viable, and it was cheaper to export material than it was to process it in the UK. And the government have really failed in supporting UK recycling businesses. And we used to have a lot more than we used to have. And, you know, on a personal level, I had 2 friends who lost their businesses because the government didn't support them, and also many of the manufacturers didn't support them. And we now have FMCG businesses turning around and saying, well, we don't know why the recycling companies haven't built recycling facilities for us to buy our PET and recycled plastics. Well, we did, and we had them, and when oil prices collapsed, we all switched back to Virgin and didn't support us. So it really is important that we get that support and build more in the UK.
Yeah. Great. Got another question. I'm loving all these questions today. Do you know if there are any litter campaigns that are going to be launched to encourage people to dispose of their PPE responsibly?
Wow, that's a good question. Somebody posted a picture the other day as well of a load of PPE washing up on a beach, and it looks like it's sort of going to be the new sort of beach plastic pollution, which is very sad. And as I said earlier in the live, that it's already turning up in recycling. I'm not aware of this. It's a very good question, and it may be worth checking the site of Keep Britain Tidy to see if they're going to run a campaign on that. But yes. A good question, but I'm not aware of anything at the moment.
Yeah, I actually believe Keep Britain Tidy are on ITV tonight, talking about fly tipping, but they might talk about, you know, some of these campaigns as solutions or something.
Yeah.
That was not an ad, by the way. I'm just reading Sat's question, and I've actually got 3 good points to answer that one, but you're more than welcome to add some answers, because we often get asked that in the industry is, what is the impact of recycling on climate change? So I've just got really 3 easy points that I like to talk about. Is that recycling avoids the extraction of new and natural resources. That's my first point. So that's why that's to me is the impact on climate change. It reduces emissions from landfill and incineration, and then it just saves energy in the whole manufacturing process. So yeah, do you have anything to add to that?
You have a 4th one, which as a social scientist is very important, and recycling makes you happy. So it's really important to
there we go. That should have been my first one. We've got someone asking, what about the carbon impact of manufacturing the green trucks?
What about the yeah, so this is an interesting one. So if you look the carbon, so there's a concept of embedded carbon, which most of the viewers probably know. And embedded carbon is the cost of building something in the first place. If you look at an electric vehicle, the embedded carbon of an electric vehicle versus the carbon of its lifetime running costs, assuming you're using renewable electricity to charge the battery, is 80% embedded and 20% running costs to get you to 100. At the moment, if you look at an electric, at a petrol-driven car or a diesel-driven car, an ICE, internal combustion engine, the embedded carbon is much lower. It's about, I think it's 50%, but the running costs are much higher, which is the other 50%, because you're obviously burning fossil fuels.
Yeah.
So at the moment, they're both equal 1 or 100. The opportunity with electric is that the embedded carbon of manufacturing is going to come down because it's very early in the sector. And if you think about processing power in computer, the Moore's law, the efficiency of batteries are going to go up. The embedded carbon in electric cars, which is mainly the battery, is going to go down. And also, as we produce a greater mix of renewable energy, the embedded carbon over the lifetime is also going to come down, whereas not going to change for ICE. Therefore, we all need to move to electric.
Yeah, perfect. You mentioned earlier that First Mile was going to launch a new offensive material collection from next week.
Yeah.
Anna here is just asking if you can just clarify again the difference between clinical waste and offensive waste.
Sure. So clinical waste needs to come, anything that comes out of a hospital is deemed to be clinical waste, or a medical centre is clinical waste. But if you're producing material from a workplace or a retail or your home, it's deemed to be offensive waste. And you can also get offensive waste coming out of medical centres, but that's it's sort of a technicality we won't get into. So offensive waste will be coming out of people with PPE, rubber gloves, things like that, from offices, or if people are doing regular cleaning and they've got sort of disposable cleaning materials, that will be deemed to be offensive waste. And that just needs to go straight into a incinerator. So it can't go via a transfer station. It can't go into the recycling stream. It just goes straight into a incinerator, and that material is incinerated. Whereas if clinical waste, again, it needs to be collected separately and under a different license, and then it needs to go into a autoclave, which is a super high temperature incinerator. So they're very different streams. Yeah.
Okay, great. Anna had just asked how it was going to be treated after collection, so you answered that one already.
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Well, I think we shall end it here for today. Thank you, everyone, for all of your questions. If you have more, feel free to send them to us via direct message, and I'm sure Bruce will be happy to answer a few more later on. But yeah, thanks so much for joining our Thursday circular chat, Bruce. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Really good. Great questions and brilliantly interviewed, Jess. So well done.
Thanks.
Thanks for viewing, everyone.
All right, thank you. And see you all next week on Thursday at 4 p.m.
Bye.
Bye.